Cayman GT4 and Boxster Spyder prices decreased by 4 to 6% during the last 3 months. Yet, the price trends for both models look stronger than for the majority of the exotic cars. The upcoming 3 months will then also be crucial for GT4 and Spyder values. But let's first talk about today's market, the last 3 months and the long-term price trends. We start with today's US market. Over here we have the Spyders and the GT4 split by generation. In total there are only 157 cars for sale, and you can see that there is a significant price difference between the two generations. Combined, the 981s have a median price of $110,000 and stretch up to $125,000. And this number is exactly the market bottom in the 718 market. Is this a coincidence? Probably not. Model year 2022 cars at the market bottom are, by the way, new cars, but I doubt that you can get them for that price. Used cars are priced a lot higher, as a Spyder will set you back $143,000 and a GT4 $142,000. Prices are similar and so are the original MSRPs. Looking at the top end, we can see that prices stretch up all the way to $170,000, and these are of course the high spec cars. And with that I think that we're up to date on today's market and are ready to have a look at the price trends. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, prices decreased by 4 to 7%. Now this is not unique, as many exotic car price trends are flattening or even decreasing. Yet, notwithstanding the price decrease, the Boxster Spyder and GT4 market are still quite strong when you compare them to these other exotic car markets. The year-on-year price change is still positive. The upcoming 3 months will then also be crucial. Will the price trend turn like in the rest of the market, or will the Spyder and GT4 markets outperform other cars? Let's have a look, and we start with the 718 generation. Over here we have in blue the price trends for the used GT4s and in orange for the used Spyders. And this reveals that the Spyders came down by 3.1% during the last 3 months, while this is 4.3% for the GT4s. And both price decreases are statistically confirmed, and this means that it is unlikely that they are the result of chance. The price drops are then also visible in all market segments, but more about that later. Now if you happen to own a GT4, you are still in quite a comfortable position. The 12-month price change is still up by 4.1%. For the Spyder I unfortunately don't have any data between September 2020 and November 2021. However, we can see that compared to November of last year, prices remained flat. Now looking at the long-term price changes, I need to mention that the first 2 data points are unreliable. They only consist out of 1 car, and this of course does not give an accurate representation of the price. The first reliable point for the GT4 is December 2020, and compared to that point, prices are up by 21.3%. Again, good news if you bought the GT4 back then, but bad news if you have been waiting for prices to drop. You see, these price trends, and especially the one for the GT4, looks a lot stronger than that it does in many other markets. You don't need to apply any fancy statistics to see this. The most recent price drop is not insignificant, but it is smaller than the previous price increase. And this goes, by the way, for the PDKs and the manuals. There are only minor differences between the price trends. Many other markets display the opposite of what we can see here, so this means a price decrease that is larger than the previous price increase. Some even show a clear topping pattern and a trend reversal. However, there are also similarities to other markets, and one of them is the increase in supply. Over here we can see that supply in the used market has been increasing since the introduction of both cars. With 65 GT4s and 40 Spyders, supply levels are even at an all-time high. Moreover, the most recent surge was quite significant, and this might have contributed to the price drop. We can't say the same for new supply. As you can see, it peaked somewhere at the end of 2020 and has been subdued ever since. I think we all know the reasons for this. But let's go back to the price trends for a moment. I mentioned that the price drop was carried across the market, and this is true. It doesn't really matter how you split the data, all data splits show a decrease in the prices. However, some segments show a stronger decrease than others. Over here we have the used GT4 price trends broken down by mileage buckets. So this means that the blue line, for example, shows the price development for the cars between 0 and 1260 miles. Naturally, these price trends move around a bit more than the aggregate numbers. There are simply less cars behind each data point. Nevertheless, if we look at the blue line, there might just be a significant difference. Low mileage cars increased much more than other cars during the last year, but also came down a lot more during the last 6 months. Possibly the premiums were larger in this category as new supply was tight. After all, cars with such a low mileage compete directly with the new cars when supply is this low. And with that, it's time to have a look at the 981 market. But before we do so, if you enjoyed this video and would like to support the channel, please click on the like button down below. Thank you. Also, if you like this data-driven approach to analyzing car markets but would like to see a video for a different car, head over to my channel and check out if there is a market update available for the car you're interested in. The channel is organized by playlists, so it's relatively easy to search among the videos. Can't find the car you're looking for? Let me know the name of the car for which you would like to see an analysis by commenting it down below in the comment section. Once there are enough results for a certain car, I will make a video about it. But now then, let's have a look at the 981 market. Also, those markets look quite strong when you compare them to most other exotic car markets. Over here we have the price trend for the GT4 in blue and for the Spyder in orange. Now before we look at the numbers, I need to mention that supply for the Spyder is quite low. It usually fluctuates around 10 cars, and this means that the uncertainty in the price trend is large. You can see this from the large shaded orange area. Looking at the prices, we can see that GT4 prices came down by 6.8% during the last 3 months. Besides the fact that this is a rather large drop, it is also a statistically confirmed drop that is visible in all market segments. However, just as in the 718 market, some market segments saw a larger price drop than others, but more about that later. The situation in the Spyder market is a bit different. Prices were flat during the last months. Just as in the 718 market, the GT4 price drop and the flat development in the Spyder market are no match for the price increase that we saw before. The 1-year price change is with 6.7% in the Spyder market and 10% in the GT4 market still positive. Looking back even further, we can see that GT4 prices were dropping between July 2019 and December 2020. That's when the price frenzy started. GT4 prices are not as high as they once were, but with an increase of 21.8%, I don't think that any owner will complain. And the same goes for the Spyders, as they are still up by 22.2%. Moving on to the supply development, we can see that things look a little bit different than in the 718 market. Supply levels increased in the GT4 and Spyder market, but there is no strong uptrend. And this makes sense because the cars are a lot older. The number of cars that are for sale is approximately the same as last year. So in that sense, these patterns might indicate that the 981 market will be stronger than the 718 market. But before we discuss all of that, I would still like to show you an interesting development in the price trends. Remember that it were mainly the low mileage cars in the 718 market which saw a price decrease. And what do you know? The same applies to the 981 market. Over here we have the price trend broken down by the different mileage buckets. Again, these trends fluctuate a bit more because the number of cars behind each data point is smaller than in the aggregate trend. Nevertheless, the price development for the cars with the lowest mileage really sticks out. The price increase was larger than in the other segments, and so was the drop during the last 6 months. And with that, it's time to wrap up and to discuss future prices. Looking at all the trends together, we can clearly see that prices decreased during the last 3 months. This is in line with the rest of the exotic car market. However, if you extend the horizon to a period of 6 months or longer, you can only conclude that the price trend is still up. And hereby these markets deviate from the exotic car market trend. The upcoming 3 months will then also be key for the GT4 and Spyder market. Will prices come down again and hereby cause the market to turn? Or will the GT4 and Spyder markets outperform the rest and will prices be flat or even bounce back up? Unfortunately, we do not have an evidenced model of future prices. So all the talk about future developments is pure speculation. Having said that, I like to think about these future developments in terms of scenarios with probabilities attached to them. And in my opinion, the downside risk in the 718 market is larger than in the 981 market. The main reason for this is the development in the supply levels. 718 levels are increasing continuously, and it is likely that a saturation point will be met sooner or later. And this is going to put some downward pressure on the prices. In addition to this, we have of course the developments on the demand side. We cannot observe this, but I think we can all agree that the current economic climate favors a demand decrease instead of a demand increase. So I think that the 718 market might enter a situation with increasing supply, decreasing demand and therefore a higher probability of decreasing prices than in the 981 market. 981 supply levels on the other hand are stable, as long-term trends are flat. Any price changes are therefore likely to result solely from a change in demand. And with that we arrived at the end of this video. As always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you next week for a new analysis.